day, everybody. I'm Heidi, and I'm welcoming you back to AADL TV for another craft program. So today we're going to do some more pom-poms. We did Pom-Pom 101 a while back, and that was showing you the basics of how to make a pom-pom, without having a pom-pom maker on hand, and really just using your hand to wrap the yarn around it and sliding off that bundle, tying it up, and it's all about the trimming. So today what I'm going to show you is how to make a much bigger pom-pom. Actually, that one's not quite finished trimming. So here's a big one, another pretty big one. For reference, last time, this is about the size that we made. So this size was made using our hand and wrapping it about 100 times around. It's usually good, 100, 120, so you get a nice density for the pom-pom. So to make something bigger, we need a slightly bigger template to work with, and also we have to wrap it many more times. This one was wrapped 300, and this one was like around 250, so it's a little bit looser and softer, and it could be trimmed a bit more, but I kind of liked how it looks a little bit just frazzled and fun. And another thing I started playing around with is this is an old cat brush that we never really used much because the cats didn't like this one. We had a different one that was preferred. So this has been hanging around, and just by gently brushing it, it starts to separate the fibers, so it'll get a little more plush. This one is kind of hard to see. This you can see by comparison how much softer it is compared to that. It's just kind of a different look. It's fun. Okay, so let's first move on to making the bigger pom-pom. So, not to alarm you, I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Don't want to move too fast. Clear out these pom-poms. Okay, so what I chose to use today is just a piece of cardboard. Actually, it's two pieces of cardboard. You can see that. And I taped it together because the cardboard, it's a little bit weak. I mean, it's strong, but it doesn't have the best integrity, so putting two of them together is sturdier, so it won't collapse. Because remember how I was talking about before, when you're wrapping it around your hand, if you start to wrap too tight, your fingers collapse in on each other. So you want to keep it nice and relaxed, even on here. So I happen to have 3 strands of thread today because we're going to wrap this about 300 times, and I didn't want you to have to sit through all that. But having the 3 strands, I can just wrap 100 times. And I'm trying to keep it all pretty much in this similar area, not getting too wide. So it'll be a nice tight bundle. Okay, snip this off. Take another piece. Nice and long piece to work with. Okay. So this one, this was just the yarn I had. It was multicolored, so it came out like that, which is really, really cool. It was like a variegated yarn. I was trying to use that to demo, but unfortunately did not have things set up as they needed to be. So we're starting over with this. I really am excited about these blacks and pinks together. So I'm gently sliding the bundle off the cardboard, trying to maintain its integrity and its shape, just kind of setting it down. And now we'll take that piece of yarn, setting it in the middle, bringing our ends up, cross it over, bringing it under, and tying it. First, just kind of gently. Now I'm going to flip this over because I want to try to keep this in the middle, this nice belt we're going to put on it. Tightening it up a little bit. And now we'll tie a knot to secure it. Just crossing it over. Tying it up really tight. Almost feels like I'm going to pull tight enough to break the yarn, which can happen. So go tight, but not too tight. And a second crossing, and that secures the knot. Okay. I'm just going to trim these down so they're out of the way. Now, working my finger into the loops. With my scissors, slide that through and cut. Just like a smaller size pom-pom, same method, just going to be more to trim. Okay. Now start to first just fluff this out. Found a couple more loops I missed. Now we can see like the inner wrappings, they're a little bit shorter length of yarn. And that's kind of nice to see, you know, where the shape is that you can start trimming. So I'm going to start with trying to trim these longer ones down. I mean, the idea as you go is you're trying to get everything a consistent length. And a fair amount of this is going to be trimmed away, but don't be alarmed. It's worth it. And you could make one even bigger than this. There's lots of different methods. I have seen where someone used two, and I've tried it, used two tubes, like toilet paper tubes, together, and you would wrap around the tubes. I tried it, and unfortunately my tubes just didn't have the best integrity. They started to collapse, and I didn't really like the way it was going. When I had done it in the past, I had tubes that are for craft projects, so they're thicker cardboard, and they can really hold up to many layers. So you have an opportunity to get something like that. You know, that's how you can really go wild with making a big pom-pom. And it just starts to be, the more you wrap it too is going to help it grow in size, as well as having a little bit bigger kind of template to be working with. Okay. Okay, just rolling it out, fluffing it out, and then seeing what else we can trim. we have the idea. Again, it's just trimming it, just like you do any other pom-pom, just more surface area, more wraps. And this yarn that I've been using is what's called a worsted weight. It's kind of usually your average yarn, you know, the average acrylic yarn you're going to buy is going to be that weight. But you could use bulky yarn, make a nice thick pom-pom that way. You could use a finer yarn, more wraps, you know, see what happens. Make it a little more maybe delicate, smaller pom-pom. So much to discover. Okay. Well, maybe I'll trim that a little bit more later, but it's good for now. Okay, so on to our next topic for today for next level pom-poms. And that is how to make many pom-poms in one go. So I have here, I did this a couple different ways today. So I have 2 sets of, I made 6 pom-poms at once. Okay. And they're all pretty much consistent size. This one's the one I started to brush out, so it looks a little bit fluffier and fuzzier. This again, I just happened to use, I had some scraps, so I wrapped one, I think the darker pink, and then I just wrapped the lighter pink over it, and it just kind of came out as a half and half pom-pom. Really cute. So there are multiple ways to do this. And one way, it's a little bit complicated. Like, what is this contraption? So this was a can, empty can from tomatoes, 28-ounce can. And I have taped around it 6 chopsticks. And just, I measured sort of loosely to make them all equidistant. The idea with using this is you would take your yarn and just wrap it around the chopsticks. But again, gently, don't want to get it real tight. Nice and gentle. You would do it like that. And still go 100 times. Even though it's small, you still want to have a good number, 90 to 100, so it's still nice and dense. And then say I've wrapped that long, and I would just work to slide this off that can area over to the sticks. And now you can see right in here is where you would wrap or tie your bundles off. For making something smaller, I don't usually use a piece of yarn. It's a bit too thick. So I would recommend I have this is a size 10 maybe. It's crochet thread basically. That's what it would be called. Or you could even use some other sewing thread as well. And so I would just, snip off a piece, do the same thing where you tie it. Whoop, one side. And then to get it around, a little bit easier is to go and take that tail and just bring it around that way. And then you can work on what is kind of the top surface again. And I would just do that, tie it off. And once you had tied at each place, you'll have 6 little bundles. And then you would just take your scissors and at each chopstick, or it's starting there, you cut here, take the bundle off, and then just cutting in between where it's tied would make 6 bundles. Now talking about that probably sounds kind of confusing, but I'm going to show you a couple other ways, so you're going to understand soon if you don't right now, okay? But this is a little bit complicated to make. Maybe you don't have chopsticks on hand, and you have to really tape it down. It kind of gets a little fiddly sometimes if the chopsticks get loose, so I thought, there's got to be something a little bit simpler we can do. Another idea I had was to just use 2 cans. And just using that, because it's just making it a longer wrap. So to do it this way, I'm just wrapping. This is about 50 times already on here. So I just have to take this another 50. Kind of different motion, different method for laying this in place. I'm working with a lot of multiple colors today because I am doing what's called stash busting, which is when you have small pieces, small things, you know, a stash of yarn that maybe you can't use for most projects, but you could use it for a pom-pom project. So just having those smaller amounts. I mean, this could be done with empty cans. I just didn't have any empty cans, but I took the labels off just so it wouldn't be so distracting. And you could do this with 2 bigger cans and make even more pom-poms. I'm going to just cut now because I think we've gone definitely a good 100 times. Alright, so we need to start tying off our bundles. I'm going to lay this down, it'll be a little bit easier. Threading that through, bringing it up, tie it, and I'm going to try to tuck this tail under. See how it came out on the other side? And then just pulling it. So now that tie is on the back side. I can pull it tight and make my knot. Alright. And now what I want to do is tie, I think I can get, I'm going to say 6 out of this size. So how to figure out, you know, what that's going to be, how to make that equidistant. So you could use a tape measure, and I measured, let's see, measuring around this comes out to be, let's get that around on the bundle. This is about 42 centimeters. Nice that that came out that great number. So the reason why that's great is because I can divide 42 by 6 pretty easily, and 42 divided by 6 is 7. So I could measure from there to there and see that that's where I want to tie my next one. So I'm going to just kind of scoot this a little bit, scooting the bundle over. Get a piece of string. And first I'm just going to lay this in here, and then I'm going to remeasure to see where I need to put this tie. Where'd it go? There it is. Okay. So I'm just going to do first that nice loose initial tying of it, and then pulling the string through so I can turn this way. Now let's see. Is that 7? I'm going to scoot it just a little bit. And they don't have to be super perfect, but it just helps when we get into cutting them apart later. Okay, there's about 7 inches, or 7 centimeters. Nice and tight. Sometimes you need help with tying the knots, so no worries. Just get a little help with that so you can make your bundles nice and tight. All right, I'm just going to keep going along with the next one. Tying it once, turning it, slide this down, 7 inches, right about there. So if you don't have a tape measure, how are you going to measure it? Well, you could again just go by eye, but there is a way to measure even without the tape measure. And that would be to get a piece of yarn or string. I'll show you this way, kind of in the middle, bringing it around. And that's going to be our, perimeter of it, the circumference of that kind of round oval shape. So that's how much around. So if I do that, that would be halfway. And then I want to just try to fold this into thirds. Kind of laying the strings, let's see, just a little bit like that. So now that is about 1/6 around of our, 1/6 of a unit around. And it's difficult to keep measuring with this piece of string, so then, just take a piece of paper, laying this down. So about to there, making a line. And then you could cut this piece, just making sure there's nothing important that I need on this. And then using that to measure where to tie in between. So from point to point, you could do it like that as well. All right, so we're just going to finish tying this off. A few more strings. Almost right on. Right on the money that time. Okay. one more. At this point, I can kind of guess just by eye what's going to be the in-between. Okay. So what I'm going to do next before I start to cut these is I'm going to trim these white strings down, because since these are so contrasted against the rest of the yarn, I just want to make sure they're nice and short so they'll be well hidden inside the pom-pom. Now, looking between these two, slide that over just a little bit so it's easier to get the scissors under. Just finding about halfway, and now we'll cut. Springing free. Set the cans aside. Okay, see your little bundles, and they're pretty much similar length. If you need to, you can always kind of pull gently on the threads, and that will start to bring that tie down just a little bit. If you have ever had long hair and you wear a ponytail and you're tightening it up, it's kind of the same idea. Just pulling that gets it in line a little better. Okay, but you don't want to pull too hard or too tight and start to loosen up the strands. So now we're just going to trim the rest of these apart. Finding about halfway. Okay, and just one more. And there we have 6 pom-poms. And they're kind of cute even like this. Like, you don't always have to trim it, and make it real, small and round and perfect. Sometimes, this might be the look you're going for. Keep them kind of fuzzy and loose like that. I have all these fuzzies flying into my face, and so I'm trying not to sneeze. We could take it and fluffing it out, trimming it down a little bit. And not really as much trimming when it's this small. Certainly you could make bigger pom-poms like this. Just need a slightly bigger surface. Okay, so that is how you would do that. Another option, if you don't have 2 cans on hand, is to take that cardboard, the same piece we used for making the big pom-pom, but this time I would just wrap it the long way. Hold it down here and just wrap it. Working it nice and gentle until you have about 100 or more wraps. I wouldn't go too far beyond 100 though, because they are tiny and it can be difficult to tie the bundle really tight. Unless of course you're going to make, like out of this one, you could make 4 larger pom-poms instead of doing 6, and that way you'd want to wrap it, a good 120, I would say. And then you could just tie your strings, divide it by 4, whatever the length is, divide 4 different places to make 4 a little bit bigger pom-poms. So that would be the idea, like that. And again, before you would take this bundle off of here, just taking the piece of string, feeding it under. Doing that first crossover tie. And then by bringing this tail under, helps me to turn it so that tie, that initial cross is on the bottom, pull it, cross, tie and tie again. Okay, so that's pretty much what I had to show you today. So a way to make even more pom-poms. And I was even thinking, I found this box. This is a pretty big box from a pair of boots. And just think how many you could make this all the way around. I mean, that would probably be, we're lining them up. Of course, they're cut a bit now. It looks like I could get probably 4 or even 5 across, and then probably a couple down. So that right there, that's nearly a dozen pom-poms or more that you can make using a box like that. Just wrapping it around, keeping that bundle tight and tying them off into those little bundles and then trimming them. So lots of fun. It's cool to make a lot of pom-poms at once if you want to maybe, make a garland or attach them to something, like maybe cutting out of cardboard a heart or a letter that's your first initial, and then you could glue these pom-poms on there and make a fun decoration for yourself or for your friend. Maybe try, if you have a pet brush on hand, see how that works. Brushing them out. Kind of loosening up the fibers. Just be gentle. It's good to kind of hold it, pinch it. I pinch it towards the center, just so that as I do this, I'm only brushing it at the tips, and then I don't start to brush so much that I'm going to pull the fibers out. And it's going to get a little messy looking. Once you've fluffed it out, roll it up again, and maybe just a couple little trims there, here and there, at your pleasure, at your leisure. So thank you once again for joining me. I really enjoy doing these programs for you. I hope you're enjoying them and finding inspiration. Keep tuning in. There's so many great programs on our AADL.TV on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. And again, share your creations. You can tag us with the Instagram, AADLgram. We have a Facebook page. There's also Twitter, which I don't totally know how Twitter works, but we have a Twitter, so somehow you can post on Twitter, and we could see what you're making. All right, because that's just some of the best fun, is how we can inspire each other. All right, enough of that. Go off, enjoy your day, enjoy your pom-poms, and I'll see you soon.